What's up guys, and welcome to my Silver Wolf level 999 release guide. In this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build her, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best relic sets and planar ornaments, the main sets you want to go for and the subsets to aim for along with overall stack goals, and finally some general team building ideas. Silver Wolf's basic attack does imaginary damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill gains 5 punchline and does imaginary damage based off her attack to all enemies. And her regular elation skill will gain 15 hidden MMR points. Her talent lets Silver Wolf activate her ultimate when reaching 60 hidden MMR points, and reaching the maximum limit can allow hidden MMR to overflow by an additional 240 points. Gaining punchline will give Silver Wolf an equal amount of hidden MMR, and each hidden MMR point will increase Silver Wolf's crit rate by 0.4%. Reaching 100% crit rate will switch the conversion to crit damage instead, increasing crit damage by 0.8%. In God Mode player state, Silver Wolf will be immune to crowd control debuffs, can't use her ultimate, gains enhanced basic attack, and an enhanced elation skill. Using enhanced basic attack 3 times will make her exit her ultimate state, and exiting ultimate state will clear hidden MMR. While she has certified banger, using basic attack or skill against enemy targets will deal 40% imaginary elation damage, and the enhanced basic attack abilities damage is converted to elation damage at the same multiplier. Her ultimate enters her God Mode player state and advances her action by 100%. She'll deploy a zone, and while Silver Wolf does have certified banger, anytime an ally within the zone consumes a skill point, will have one chance to trigger Silver Wolf's top loot box, which deals imaginary elation damage equal to 90% split evenly among all enemies and will randomly trigger one of the following effects. The sword additionally deals true damage to the enemy target with the highest HP equal to 20% of total damage this time. Kaboom will recover 2 skill points, and the bean will gain 3 punchline. Top loot box has a fixed chance to trigger this effect by 100%, and each successful trigger will lower the fixed chance by 20% of the current chance. Silver Wolf's main source of damage, her enhanced basic attack, does imaginary damage based off her attack split evenly to 100 bounces that hit random single enemies. After bouncing a certain number of times, the bouncing pauses and triggers top loot box 1 time for a total of 3 triggers. If all enemies on field take fatal damage, the ability ends. After enemy target's attack emerges, it gains 1 extra turn and uses this ability again based on the remaining bounces and top loot box triggers. The first time this effect triggers per turn, extends all duration of buffs on this unit by 1 turn, and after all damage is dealt, unleashes a final hit doing imaginary damage based off Silver Wolf's attack split evenly among all enemies. Enhanced basic attack cannot recover skill points, and for every 60 points of hidden MMR, the damage dealt by the enhanced basic attack will increase by 15% of its original damage, stacking up to 2 times. Her enhanced elation skill will do 6 instances of damage, each instance doing 90% imaginary elation damage to a random enemy, and will also reset the fixed chance to trigger top loot box to the initial value. Her technique will summon a bean that you can use again to dismiss. It will not consume technique points, but what it will do is go around chasing normal enemies, and they will enter a terrified state. For normal enemies, they will be automatically defeated. Entering battle with the bean present will make it to where an instance of top loot box from the bean is triggered at the start of each wave. Elation damage dealt in this instance takes into a fixed amount of 99 certified banger points. For traces, her A2 will make it to where when her speed is 160 or higher, her elation increases by 50%, and for every 1 speed exceeding, this unit's elation will increase by 2% with a maximum of 100 extra speed taken into account. For A4, if the number of punchlines taken into account when using elation skill is 20 or more, gain an additional 20 hidden MMR points, and if 40 or more, gain an additional 20 points on top of that. And her A6, after entering God Mode player state, gains 20 points of hidden MMR. For Silver Wolf's global passive, once you do obtain her or when she is on the team, in battle, if an enemy inflicts a crowd control debuff on an ally, all allies will gain firewall for 1 turn. In that state, allies will be immune to crowd control debuffs inflicted by enemy targets and can trigger once per wave. Finally, for her Eidolons, her E1 increases damage taken by enemies in the zone by 20%, and exiting God Mode player state will no longer fully clear the hidden MMR, rather 20% of hidden MMR will be returned. For E2, entering God Mode player state will extend buffs on this unit by 1 turn. For every 120 points of hidden MMR in the current alt state, will give Silver Wolf 1 extra turn and regains a extra use of enhanced basic attack. Her E4 makes the elation damage dealt by her enhanced elation attack additionally take into account punchline points times 5, and her E6 makes the elation damage dealt by enhanced basic attack make by 50%. Opponents entering combat will be inflicted with absolute weakness, has all type weakness, and all type base res is reduced to 0, and if they already have their base res at 0, the corresponding type res will be decreased by 20%. For Silver Wolf's best Lightcones, her best in slot is of course her own signature Lightcone, providing the wearer 18% speed, 20% defense ignore for elation damage, and the wearer using ultimate on themselves will gain 20 points of punchline that can be triggered 1 time and resets after using basic attack 3 times. Very simple yet very effective. Speed is very important on Silver Wolf SP, so that 18% speed is going to be very good for building her. On top of that, her main source of damage, and practically all of it being elation damage, will now have 20% defense ignore unconditionally. Pair that alongside with one of her best in slot relic sets, and that's up to 40% by itself. On top of that, she does use ultimate on herself to transform, so when you transform, you get 20 points of punchline just like that, and you have to use 3 basic attacks to exit, and you would have to exit to go back into ultimate anyways, so this last part works perfectly. So for best overall performance, by far her signature is what you want to use. Other than that, you can use the Battle Pass Lightcone Today's Good Luck, providing the wearer 12% crit rate, and when the wearer uses an elation skill, increases elation 12%, stacking up to 2 times, and at S5, it's 20% for both values. So just 20% crit rate makes her a lot easier to build, and using elation skill will be able to give you 20% elation up to 40%, and all you have to do is use elation skill twice. No actual turn limit on this, so you can just have it throughout the entire battle. Simple yet extremely effective, and this would be the option you would use if you don't have her signature. However, you can actually throw on Yao Guang's signature on her as well for the 18% speed that it does provide, so the same as her signature. And then the Great Fortune effect, mainly when you are entering battle, that gives everyone, including Silver Wolf, 10% crit rate and 30% crit damage. Energy regen part is useless, and also the energy at the start of the wave is also useless. It's mainly for the fact that it does actually give you speed, and you can have the Great Fortune part for sometimes throughout the battle. And since this is actually a light cone you can have on both Silver Wolf herself and Yao Guang, this can actually work out in your favor if you happen to get like a 2-in-1 or something. So if you just happen to actually have this light cone laying around, you can put it on Silver Wolf for pretty solid results. If not that, you would be using the Mushi Shrumi's Adventures, which is a free-to-play light cone, increasing the wearer's elation by 12%, where using an elation skill will increase elation damage taken by all enemies by 6% for 2 turns. At S5, 20% elation, 10% elation vulnerability. The beauty of this light cone is you can also put this on multiple characters, so if you're running on more of a lower budget, you can put this on Silver Wolf, it could be on your Yao Guang, it could be even on your Sparksy or something, because this actual last part with the elation damage taken increased to enemies is actually stackable, so you can have this on multiple people. So for the wearer themselves, 20% elation is going to be a solid increase to damage, and now for any time the enemies are taking elation damage, they will be taking more. That is also stackable if you have multiple of this light cone, so some elation vulnerability is helpful. So if you don't have either her signature, you don't have the battle pass one, or you don't have Yao Guang's signature just laying around, which you probably don't, then that would be the light cone you want to fall back on. For Silver Wolf SP's best relic sets, her best in slot is 4-piece Everglorious, 2-piece providing 16% crit damage, the 4-piece providing the wear and Memo Sprite the ability to ignore 10% of the target's defense when doing elation damage, and for every 5 accumulated punchline allies gain, the elation damage dealt additionally will ignore 1% of the target's defense, stacking up to 10 times. As you do build her with crit, the 2-piece is going to help anytime you do crit. 4-piece is a practical unconditional 10% defense ignore for her main source of damage, which all her damage is practically just elation. And defense ignore in this game is known to really increase all forms of damage, and you can get up to an additional 10%, so total 20% by just accumulating 5 punchline. You need a total of 50 punchline to get this full effect, and that's very easy to do on our teams. Even if you don't have our best teams, like you don't have Sparksy on the team, it's super easy to accumulate this, and once you accumulate it, you don't have to do it again, you just have it throughout the entire battle. So it becomes a 20% defense ignore for practically the whole battle. If you're stacking other sources of defense ignore such that on the team, like if you have a debuffer reducing defense, or you have some Eidolon like Yao Guang E1 providing more defense ignore, then this gets even more valuable. As the higher you go up with defense shut / ignore, the better it becomes, but even just with at any point, as long as you're not obviously going above 100% where it's useless, it's going to be useful, and then once you get to around the 70% range, it gets even more useful. So 4-piece Everglorious is her best in slot. However, you can actually use 4-piece Diviner with the 2-piece increasing speed by 6%, 4-piece before entering combat if the wearer speed is equal to or greater than 120/160, whereas crit rate will increase by 10% / 18%, and where using their elation skill for the first time in battle will increase the team's elation by 10% and cannot stack. 2-piece increasing speed is actually really good since you want to build her with as much speed as you possibly can. 4-piece makes her a lot more consistent to build because you get an extra 18% crit rate going into battle, with the requirement being 160 speed, which is not a problem since Silver Wolf is built much more than that. You're looking at like 190 to even 200 ideally. And actually the last part, she's a good user of this because now you just have to use your elation skill and the team gets gets 10% elation. So if no one on your team is holding this set actually becomes even more valuable. But usually someone on the team, if you have Yagwang, she's always going to be holding it, or someone else on the team, depends on who. But if no one on the team is actually holding this, then it becomes even more valuable. The ideal setup is having this on someone else and then 4-piece Everglorious on Silver Wolf herself. That is the best damage output you can get, but 4-piece Diviner is still very good, since everything it provides, from the speed to the crit rate and also the extra elation, if this is not on anyone else, is all beneficial, which makes this the next best option to use. And those are really the only 4 pieces you want to bother with on her. If you have to do 2-piece in the meantime, just do 2-piece speed and 2-piece speed, or 2-piece speed with 2-piece crit. So the speed sets are 2-piece Diviner, 2-piece Warrior Goddess, 2-piece Relieve Ordeal, or 2-piece Hackerspace. They all provide 6% speed. If you need crit rate, 2-piece World Remaking Deliver or 2-piece Scholar both provide 8% crit rate, and crit damage would be 2-piece Everglorious or 2-piece Wave Strider. For planar ornaments, the only one you really want to use is the Punk Lord set, with it increasing the wearer's elation by 8%. When elation reaches 40%/80% for the first time in combat, the wearer's crit damage increases by 20%/32%. Extra elation and reaching 80% or higher elation for the first time in combat, which is not going to be difficult at all, you will get 32% crit damage for the wearer. So it's really just permanent 32% crit damage throughout the battle. So 8% elation, 32% crit damage for Silver Wolf. This is the best value ornament that she does have available to her. And the other problem would be that there's not really anything else that worked. If you really had to use something else in the meantime, you would have to use an ornament that provides some speed, like the Giant Tree set, just for the 6% speed, as she does want to be built with speed. That's literally the only reason that it is viable, and not even viable. You really want to run Punk Lord, and if not Giant Tree, Forge also has a 6% speed, because the actual effect of it is worthless for both. She can't heal, the break effect is practically useless. However, if you are running her with Permanentary Dawning, you can use Bandana Amusement with 16% crit damage for the wearer, and when a target summoned by the wearer is on the field, the crit damage additionally increases by 32%. This forces you to actually run a Permanentary Dawning because Silver Wolf does not have a summon, so you would have to use Dawning's ability to dedicate her as bondmate, attach a dragon to her so she gets a summon, and then gets the full 48% crit damage. This would really be the only other option. Unfortunately, stuff like attack is not going to work, and damage percent also doesn't work, so you're also mainly running that. For the main sets on the relics, for the body, you'll run crit rate or crit damage corresponding to which one you need more. Since her kit gives her a lot of crit value, you just use whichever one to get a good solid looking ratio. So usually crit rate is going to be good, but if you have a lot of crit rate rolls, running crit damage is completely fine. For the feat, you want to run speed. For the orb and link rope, just run HP percent or defense percent. The main set does not matter. So even if you roll a really good attack percent rope, if you roll a really good energy regen rope, if you roll a really good break effect rope, it's all substat dependent. The reason HP percent and defense percent is recommended more is due to the fact she doesn't actually need attack or anything like that. So survivability stats is going to be better, so she is more tanky, just so you get some form of a benefit. But if you are just rolling a really good rope on a different main set, then feel free to run that. It's all substat dependent. For the substats, you are going to be focusing speed and crit. Speed is very important. You want to get as much as you can. An S1 build would be aiming for about 200 speed. That's going to be your goal. Even if you don't have S1 or even Yagwang Sig, then you're focusing to get as close as 200 as possible. So without signature, aim for around 180 to 190. You want to just get as much as possible, as their limit is going to be all the way in 260, which is not really achievable without an insane build, or also like Yagwang E2, or if you're running an Asta setup. So that's why you want to focus on much speed as possible. Getting the 200 is important, so you get that actual extra action in MLC. So you really want to get close to 200 as possible. For crit, you just get as much as you can, since remember, once you reach over 100% crit rate in battle, it's going to be converted to crit damage. So for crit rate, getting it to around 70 to 80% outside of battle is going to be fine, as that's going to be built up with hidden MMR. If you can get even more than that, that's fine. But do remember, even though she does convert past 100%, actual crit damage rolls are going to be better. But yeah, just focus on as much crit rate as you can. Getting it to around, again, 80%, like I mentioned, is going to be good. Crit damage aiming for around like 120% to 130% is fine. But if you can go higher than that, that's going to be very, very, very good. Now for some general team building. I'm missing a good amount of the team, so you're going to have to pay close attention to what I say here, just so you know who I'm talking about. But I don't have Silver Wolf, so pretend that this OG Silver Wolf is the SP here. The non-negotiable teammate for her is going to be none other than Yagwang, so you want to have it Yagwang on the team at all times. She is the biggest increase she can possibly get. The third slot would go to Sparksy, who I also do not have on my account, so pretend OG Sparkle here is actually Sparksy. So it's Silver Wolf SP, Yagwang, Sparksy. Last slot goes to Sustain. The two sustains you can use with her is either Fuopo, especially with her buff, which is mainly to help out Sparksy and also Yaguang, because she provides energy, which is good for both. Attack buff, which is good for Sparksy. The stuff that she provides buff-wise isn't really useful for Silver Wolf, unfortunately, unless you have E1 Fuopo. Or you could also use Dawning. If you're using Band and Amusement on Silver Wolf SP, you have to use Dawning to activate the effect. Unfortunately, his attack buff is worthless on her. So that would be the last slot. So the team will look something like this. Again, Silver Wolf SP, Yaguang, Sparksy, and then the sustain slot. If you're doing sustain this, then you would take out here and put in either someone like Elation MC, which I don't have because I'm not at the story yet. So Pretend Remembrance MC here is actually the Elation MC. So the last slot would go to Elation MC here. Or the best sustain the slot overall right now is none other than Asta, which I do have an updated 4.2 guide that you can check out. Asta for her speed buff is very good on this team, not only for Silver SP herself, but her speed buff is very good for Yaguang. Now, just for simplicity's sake, let me go back to just having a sustain here. If you are missing either like Yaguang or Sparksy, in that case, you would sub one of them out for the Elation MC. So let's say you don't have Sparksy, then in this case, you just go ahead and slap on the Elation MC, which again, Pretend Remembrance here is Elation. So then it would look something like this. If you're missing both, then you're kind of in a very rough spot, but you can very much put someone that does buff Silver Wolf's damage with their buff / debuff. So you can very much put like Tribby in the spot, Cypher in the spot. If you really need to, you can also put Asta in the spot. It's going to be very bad if you're missing both, but that's kind of what you have to do. And that is the full Silver Wolf level 999 release guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all the types of Star Wars content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.